Welcome to Off Deadline. I'm Melissa DiGianfilippo, and my guest today is Ian Schwartz. Ian has nearly 20 years experience in the news business as a meteorologist and more. He is a native of Arizona, but Ian has worked across the country in Illinois, Albuquerque, and Sacramento before returning home to Phoenix at AZ Family, where you can watch him in the morning forecasting the weather and having a lot of fun in the field on Good Morning Arizona. He has covered flash floods, blizzards, tornadoes, wildfires, droughts, and just about everything Arizona weather can bring. He also recently got married, so big congrats, Ian. Thank you so much for being here.
That's the real natural disaster. Surviving a 14-year relationship.
Well, as a woman who is happily divorced, yes, I agree. I mean, really, congratulations, though.
Thank
That's
you.
like very exciting.
Yeah, pretty exciting. It's official, and yeah, just
ready to
yeah.
take on
the
life
world,
by the storm.
or keep doing things the way we have been doing it.
But you really didn't take time off work. You just jumped right back in.
Yeah, I did a little. I was actually married in December in Albuquerque, where my now husband. That's so weird to say.
Isn't that crazy? How fast that like shifts.
Like, wait a second. So we did like the official ceremony in Albuquerque, and then we did like the wedding kind of mixer party here.
That's awesome.
Before summer hit.
Yeah, I saw on Instagram all the reporters from all over the valley. Like, it was like one story after the other from your wedding. I'm like, that's really cool. So
yeah, it was a nice showing from them.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me here. This is cool.
Of course. Happy to be doing this and really excited to have you. I love watching you. My team loves watching you. You bring really great energy to, our TV screens and computer screens and phone screens. So excited to go behind the scenes with you today.
Absolutely.
I'd like to start with your backstory a little bit. Why did you choose journalism, and how did you get your start?
It was almost like a mistake, actually. I was at MCC. I was kind of a lost student. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and so I was taking classes and everything from science to jazz to you name it. And then I tried this media class, and I think because I thought it was going to be like an easy A.
Yeah.
So I wasn't a good student, for sure. And I kind of liked it, and then I took another class, and then I took another class, and I got there, and he says, you're going to be writing for the Mesa Legend, the MCC's newspaper. And I said, oh, I made a mistake. I think I got ahead of myself. I was supposed to take like another class before I got to this. And this instructor, he used to work for Miami Herald, Jack Mullins, he said, you know what, stick with it. We're not going to let you fail. We'll edit your stories, and we're not going to let you sound stupid and this and that. And then I started writing for this newspaper, and I loved it. And then I eventually transferred to ASU, and I've always been into cameras and tech and editing. I said, oh wait, there's like a video version of reporting. And so I started doing that, and I started doing well, and I got good grades, and once I found something I liked, then I kind of excelled. And so I always thought I was going to be in media or have like a public facing job.
Okay, yeah.
But I didn't really know the route, how I would achieve it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think like it takes a certain personality type to be comfortable in what you do, and not only be comfortable, but like be comedic and have fun and natural. And has that always been comfortable for you?
I think so. People have always said I'm funny, and I've always liked to kind of perform. I'm the youngest child, so
that makes sense.
Like desperate for attention, I guess. In a big family, there were 7 people in the house when we grew up.
Wow.
Where we grew up in Mesa, so the youngest in a big family, and then I also had tons of influences from my brothers and sisters, and some of them are animated as well. So I think I kind of like soaked up everything from them.
Yeah.
And I was more of a serious reporter when I first started out, so there wasn't a ton of room to like be zany.
Yeah.
But I had my own little, quirks. But now that I do kind of lighter stuff, I can really let that go wild.
Yeah, that's really fun. Well, thank you for that. I'm curious, what assignment has revealed something about humanity or society that might have really altered your worldview?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think, you know, recently, maybe it was a couple years now, they sent me to Maui after the Lahaina wildfires. And I'd actually never been to Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Oh,
it
yeah,
was
Hawaii.
a crazy, you know, reason to go, I guess. And people had talked about like the Aloha Spirit, and I had heard about it. I almost thought it was just kind of like a tagline or like, you know,
Little kitschy marketing thing.
yeah, the Commerce Department or the Tourism Department came up with it. But in this face of disaster where all these homes had burned down, days later the government had provided no help, and people were out of gas and they were living in parks and all this stuff, these kind of roadside aid stands started popping up where people could go to basically a little nurse triage. They could get food, they could get water, and all these strangers were just helping each other. And it was so incredible. It was almost emotional, like brought a tear to your eye to see all of these people doing these amazing things. And then I was like, oh, that's the Aloha Spirit. And I was like, oh, that's like a real thing. So I guess in the face of disaster, seeing people being able to like pause and still like have good in them and not going, oh my gosh, the world is ending and stuff like that. So that's always kind of inspiring. That's the most recent one. There's been other wildfires that I've worked on in California where I saw, you know, similar things where people like coming together and really making a difference. And it's like, okay, this is kind of contagious.
Yeah. And I imagine that's so much harder to cover something like that and have to be in people's faces asking them really tough questions when like their life is decimated or their family, they don't know where their family is, or in a wildfire, or in, gosh, I mean, so much in Maui was so scary when you think about no one could get to them, they couldn't get through to people. Like, how do you do that?
I think you have to really listen and let people know that you really are there listening and you want to do right by them.
Yeah.
You know, if you fly in there with a camera and you're trying to be fast about it, I mean, you really have to finesse the situation. And especially in Hawaii where, you know, not all of them take kindly to, you know, mainlanders.
Yeah,
you know,
true.
there's a whole history with the Hawaiian people. And so here you got this guy like from Phoenix, like, what are you doing here? We were there helping our sister station, but when you just talk to people and you're just real with them and explain the best you can, and a lot of times like, hey, like I wish I wasn't here.
Yeah.
Like, but this is, you know, where we are and what's the deal, what message. And what they really wanted me to get out was that nobody helped them. Nobody helped them. And they were stuck and they were mad. And they said, don't let that get lost in the story. And I said, no, I'll, you know, make sure people know that.
Yeah, that's great. That's really important work. Every journalist likely faces moments of doubt. Can you share a time when maybe you reached a professional crossroads, and how did you navigate that?
Probably living through a Midwest winter.
Oh, God, I went to school at college in Ohio. Believe me, I know.
I was born and raised here in Phoenix and Mesa specifically. So being plucked from the Sonoran Desert and dropped in the middle of central Illinois. And as you know, the winters are long and tough. The pay wasn't great, which I knew, but Chicago was so close, and I thought, well, should I get out of this? Should I be doing stand-up comedy? Should I do more of the fun feature things that I do now? Early on as a reporter, I thought maybe I should just quit and go to Second City in Chicago and, you know, try something else. So there was a couple times, I mean, I'm sure I Googled Second City classes, and I still enjoyed doing the hard news and as a reporter, but there was a couple of times where that happened, but then I kept with it and eventually kind of found a path to what I get to do now.
Yeah. And did you have to make strategic decisions to get back to Arizona? Like, did you know that was always the path?
Yeah, I think I always wanted to come home at one point. I kind of went from Illinois to New Mexico to Sacramento, and then along the way, I started my weather schooling. So through Mississippi State, a lot of TV people will do that. It's almost like an online MBA for weather.
Yeah.
It allows you to keep working while getting schooling for weather.
Yeah.
So I started that in Albuquerque, and then I transitioned into kind of weather in Sacramento. and I stayed in touch with a lot of people. I mean, poor Sean McLaughlin. I think I'd sent him a lot of messages over the years that, hey, can you look at this resume tape? And there were some great mentors who were happy to help and kind of give me advice, and just fostering those connections and finessing them and making sure.
Yeah.
But eventually that was definitely the plan to get back here. So I think staying in touch was the main thing.
Yeah, that's smart.
And having a good reputation.
Yes, not burning any bridges along the way. Because despite being in different markets, I imagine the TV world's small, you know?
Is tiny.
Yeah.
I'll get a call from someone I worked with 15 years ago, and they'll say, hey, so-and-so worked at your station, what do you know about them?
Yeah.
Or it was someone I worked with 2 stations ago, and it's a very, very small world.
Yeah. Can you talk about a moment when you witnessed your journalism make a tangible, positive difference in someone's life?
There's a lot of stories as far as hard news reporting goes, helping people out where they had nowhere else to turn. The city wasn't helping them, or it could have been medical bills or whatever. But in my current role, I think during COVID, being able to kind of make people laugh and maybe take their mind away from things. I mean, things are still, it's a topsy-turvy world always, and the only real constant is chaos. Yeah. So I got a lot of messages from people saying, thank you so much. It's just refreshing to be able to kind of get a break from everything and laugh. Or I've had, viewers who had a medical procedure and they were stuck at home for 2 or 3 weeks, and so they'd say, oh my gosh, you were cracking me up. It helps. It helps so much to get over this hip surgery. So it's small. I mean, it's just a joke or this or that. But it made an impact, and I love hearing those stories when people reach out and they say, "Oh, I got to forget about my problems or the world's problems for just a little bit."
Yeah, that's got to be a real good feeling. And also probably makes you feel like you're doing the right thing, like you're in the right career.
Yeah.
You know.
And I know that the joke was funny because in the studio sometimes the anchors
no one
aren't.
laughs. You're like, are you even listening? Is this on?
It's usually the anchor's not listening, and it's like, hey, hello, is this thing on?
Hi. That's so funny. Yeah, the talkbacks I'm sure sometimes get a little bit hard. Was there a moment when in your career that maybe still weighs on you or keeps you up at night? Maybe a story you covered or something you saw that you just can't get out of your mind?
You unfortunately are sometimes pretty early on the scene, and you've seen maybe dead bodies or something like that, or charred homes. I've walked through dozens and dozens of homes that have burned down in wildfires. But there was this is back when I did the more serious stuff. I was working in New Mexico, and this young man, I think he was on drugs. He was 18 years old. It was on the Navajo Nation, and there was a nun who had a convent up there in northwestern New Mexico. And this guy, he murdered a nun.
Oh, gosh.
Which is, obviously murder is horrific, but it's like, oh my God, a nun.
Yeah.
And I was in court sitting, 10 feet away from him. And I was just thinking about, obviously the drugs, I think, played into it, but it was just so weird sitting so close to maybe from me to where this camera is. And thinking, this kid is 18 years old, and I'm not getting into the details of the incident, but it was just so bizarre to be so close to a guy who did something so horrific.
Yeah.
And being so young, and it was almost like I wanted to get in his head, but at the same time I did not want to get into his head.
Yeah.
It was probably a very dark and, troubling place.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you experience those things, because you've seen a lot of things, I'm sure, that are not happy moments, how do you take care of your own mental health? Because I imagine you've had to learn tactics to deal with things like that.
Probably humor.
Yeah.
Dark humor.
Yeah.
Half of what is on the news, or half of what we see in, police reports can't even make it to the news.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so graphic, and unfortunately you have to read these things, especially crimes against children. That is just horrific when you hear about some of the things that sick individuals do to children.
Yeah.
And maybe humor and just putting away, not staying entrenched in the news, actually taking a break. Okay, I go home, I'm not going to necessarily immediately turn on the news and then watch more horrific stories.
Totally,
So I think
yeah.
stepping away from whatever it is you do does help.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good tactic. And just to remember, like, it's okay to turn it off. You don't have to, you know,
Yeah.
always be on, right?
Yeah,
And-
get entrenched in it. I mean, big stories. I remember those wildfires in Maui. I was always on Twitter. I was like, okay, I need to back up here. Like, I'm off the clock. Like, let's take a break. This is going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
there's definitely people who deal with a lot worse. I mean, the first responders, they, I don't know how they do it because they see things that we don't, you know, even get close to.
Yeah, I actually do work for a nonprofit called Stop Our Stigma that is really to help destigmatize the stigma that exists with first responders and like needing help, and it's a big problem.
For sure.
It's very scary. Was there a moment that's your proudest professional achievement that maybe never got the recognition you felt like it deserved?
Oh, gosh. That is a good question. Did I write an answer down?
No, you didn't give me an answer.
I
You
didn't
just picked
give-
that question.
I picked that question.
Yep.
By the way, you had very good questions.
Thank you so much.
These were very, very good
Appreciate
questions.
it.
I think it's that those messages I get, you know, someone sending a kind note about how you really made their day. Like, I don't broadcast those on air. I mean, that would
No,
be
that's braggy and
asinine,
weird.
bragging. And I don't, you know, necessarily march those over to my boss, but they're personal messages that I get where people say that I made a difference on a small scale. So those happen periodically, or someone I bump into at the grocery store or wherever, and they kind of convey those things about humor and getting to relax and, you know, breaking up the some of the bad things that you can see in newscasts.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think those kind of all tied together, kind of, I quietly am proud of those. And,
Yeah.
like to hear them and know that I'm connecting, because you're literally in a studio and there's just a bunch of bright lights and there's a camera, and you know what goes out is like, I hope people like this.
Yeah, did it connect?
Did it
Did
connect?
it resonate?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's probably also negative feedback that you deal with, and I imagine with social media in the last 10 years, your job has completely changed, but like also people feel like they have this direct line to you, right?
You know, I'm somewhat fortunate. I don't get a ton of hate mail.
That's great.
Which is good. I would say there's a lot of craziness as far as the weather, and people want to argue about really dumb stuff.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a dust storm or a haboob.
Yeah.
Like, that train is never late every single summer. You know, we have a weather picture page, and first dust storm that comes up, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. They're going to start arguing about Haboob versus dust storm.
Yep,
or this
what
or
is
that.
it?
And it's like, people, it's not that serious.
What's the difference though, legit?
I mean, a Haboob would be a large dust storm.
Okay.
I don't know the exact, you know,
Like,
feet.
how do you measure
if
it?
it's 5,000 feet, or, you know, how high. It is a term that's mainly used in the Middle East for these massive dust storms. They see them, I think, a bit more than we do, but we can get ones that kind of rival and are at least on par with what they see.
Yeah.
And it is in meteorological text. It just wasn't a word we think, you know what, this sounds funny. Let's start saying
It's
it.
the most random word,
It
really. Like,
really
it is. I feel like when I first heard it, I'm like, that's not real.
You're like, wait, are you playing a joke on me?
Totally.
Who wrote this, a 13-year-old?
Literally, they're like, oh, let's just say Haboob. Come on, that's gonna be funny. Yeah. No, but I social media must make it awesome and hard. You know.
Yeah, for the most part, it's all good.
Yeah.
Viewers send me a lot of reels, and I can't start. I already get too many from my friends. I cannot onboard any more.
You can't, no more, please.
Reels exchanges.
So no more reels for Ian, guys.
I can't. I'd have to quit my job to respond to all these.
That's so funny. It's good they love you, though. That's
Yeah.
a sign of love, I think.
Exactly.
So what childhood dream or obsession still influences you today in your reporting or your life or other unexpected ways?
I guess entertaining and performing, you know.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I remember our bathroom, the downstairs bathroom, the toilet faced the mirror, and whenever whatever I was doing there, I would make a lot of faces and do voices and kind of like perform in the bathroom. And I think that kind of stuck with me in a way. I mean, I used to think, oh, I want to be on SNL and I want to do that. And I don't know if I loved comedy enough to pursue that, because that is a very, very hard career.
Yeah.
this was rewarding and also kind of gave me the avenue to do that performance in an aspect. Yeah, there's the serious stuff about, the news and broadcasting and truth telling and holding powerful accountable and all those things, which I don't do as much more in my current role.
Yeah.
But I think the performance aspect and making people laugh.
Yeah.
I've always loved to do that, and now I get paid to do that.
Yeah.
In addition to the weather. Obviously, if there's a tornado warning, we're not telling jokes.
Of course, like the appropriate
Yeah,
time and place.
But sunny and 90 for 7 days.
Yeah.
There's a little more room for that.
Absolutely. And you ad-lib probably a ton, right?
It's all ad-lib.
It's all ad-lib.
Yeah. I mean, basically, a weather forecast is a slide share. Mm-hmm. Is that what the young kids call it?
That makes sense. Yeah, slide share, yeah.
It's PowerPoint when I was growing up.
Yep, same. I mean, yeah.
I don't know if that's company's bankrupt or not. So it's those are your notes. So you create the slides, but there's no there's no script in there.
Okay, yeah.
So anytime you see someone doing the weather, it's usually just all ad-lib.
Oh, wow.
With
I had no idea.
Note cards. The anchors usually have scripts in there, and they tweak their scripts and stuff like that. But for the most part, just about any weather forecast you see will be ad-lib.
Yeah, interesting. Learn something new. Okay, we're getting into our rapid fire section to end.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to ask you a question, and I just go with the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay, this could be dangerous.
Could be dangerous. Secret weapon to get you through a rough deadline day.
Coffee.
What's your coffee order?
Simple. Pike's Place, a baby's whisper of cream.
Baby's whisper. It's kind of like my mimosa. A baby's whisper of orange juice.
Oh, I was going to say.
Yes.
That sounds about
Yep,
right.
that's it. Most bizarre place you've ever conducted an interview?
Oh, my gosh. A hot air balloon in the air. At the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta.
I want to go to that so badly.
It's really, really neat.
Even when they used to have it at Westworld, now it's out far in Chandler, I think. But when I was young, I would go to the one out here, and it was so cool. I imagine Albuquerque is insane.
There's 300 to 500 balloons. It's nice and cool. You get a delicious breakfast burrito, maybe a little fireball or something.
Yep.
And they do a really neat thing where they stay grounded, and they call them balloon glows. And so they fire up all the burners. So they're kind of inflated, and it looks like a pinball machine, all lit up. So definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, for sure. Your secret journalistic superpower?
Listening and being myself. Took many years to kind of figure that out. Thinking, well, I need to do this and do that. But really, well, first of all, the viewers can see right through anything.
Always.
So you're wasting your time if you're trying to put on a persona. And just being real and being yourself is so valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Best headline you ever wrote or wished you wrote?
Man punches bear to save his dog.
Wait, you really wrote that? As a real headline?
I did a story. Yeah, a guy in Placer County when I worked in Sacramento.
Yeah.
He had this tiny little Chihuahua, and he's this Marine. He's retired, and he went out on his porch, and then there was this big bear, and he scooped up, or he ran up to the bear or something. And this guy was such a character, and he socked this bear in the face. To save his dog.
Wow.
And during the interview, he said, "No one's going to hurt my little pooch." He's a big, burly, tough guy, and he's petting this little Chihuahua after he just punched a bear.
That's awesome. I love it.
I will never forget that. Carl Moore was his name.
Wow. And you'll never forget his name because that guy's a legend.
He's literally one of the most interesting people I ever interviewed. And then during the interview, I'm chatting with his buddy, and their old Marine buddy. He's like, "Oh yeah, Carl's crazy. He's been in a bunch of bar fights." I'm like, "Well, yeah, that checks." He's like, "Carl, show him your eye." And then he takes his eyeglasses off, and then the little stick of the eyeglasses, he pops it in his eye, and then pops out his glass eye, and it lands on the table. And the photographer and I are like, "What the hell?" And it was just, I couldn't put it in the story because it was too much. I had to
Oh my God.
I was like, that's staying out. But it's very interesting.
Thank you for showing me.
Yes.
Wow.
I was like, wow.
What a story.
It would have been overload for the viewer.
Oh, for sure. But on social, it would have gotten you
I know, the glass
would have
eye.
gone nuts.
I was like, of course he has a glass eye.
Of course. He punched a bear in the face. Yes. Okay. If you weren't a journalist, you'd be?
I should have been a trial lawyer.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I'd been rich. I would have been very rich.
For sure. But is that what, would you have liked
No, I don't know. I jokingly say that. Maybe a comedian.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's very hard, like I said. That's
Yeah.
a very, very tough business. I think I would have made a good teacher. That's not an easy job either. No. Yeah, maybe lawyer, teacher, or comedian.
Yeah. And actually, being a comedian is a great skill in all of those careers. A teacher, a lawyer, and obviously your current job.
It's all theater.
It's all theater, yeah. I so appreciate you being here. Is there anything else you want viewers to know about you?
No, what you see is what you get,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Tune in, and appreciate you having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Of course. Thanks, Ian.
You got it.